Good afternoon and welcome to this virtual meeting of the Licensing Panel of Allerdale Borough Council. My name is Lee Jardine and I'm the Democratic Services Officer, and for the purposes of this meeting I'm also the host. I will not have any control over the meeting and the meeting will not begin until instructed by the Chair. This meeting is currently being live streamed on YouTube and a recording will be made available afterwards. Everyone who has indicated they're attending the meeting is now joined and the meeting will be locked. Shortly I will begin the meeting. But first, introductions. Can I ask the attendees to introduce themselves, first of all, starting with the members. Councillor Daniels.
Good afternoon, Councillor Alan Daniels.
Councillor Gaston.
Good afternoon, Councillor Peter Gaston.
Councillor Smith.
Good afternoon, Councillor Alan Smith.
Thank you. And now we'll move over to the officers. Jill Morgan.
Jill Morgan, Legal and Licensing Manager.
And Deborah Fletcher.
Good afternoon, Deborah Fletcher, Licensing and Compliance Officer.
Thank you. We also have speakers on the meeting will be introduced later on. Basically, throughout the meeting, can participants remain on mute unless intending to speak? So that's everything done from in terms of introductions. Now, what we need to do is go on to item 1. So I'll open up the meeting with item 1, the election of chair. Can we please have a nomination for chair, please?
Could I move Councillor Peter Gaston as chair of this meeting, please?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Is that seconded?
Yeah, I second that. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks very much, Councillor Daniels. Councillor Gaston, as long as you're happy with this, I'll hand it over to yourself and you can proceed from item 2. Thank you.
That's fine, Lee. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Item 2, apologies and absence.
Thank you, Chair. We don't have any apologies for absence. All members are in attendance.
Thank you. Item 3, declaration of interests. Councillors, staff to give notice of any disclosable pecuniary interest, other registerable interest, or any other interest, and the nature of that interest relating to any item on the agenda in accordance with the adopted Code of Conduct. No.
Doesn't appear so, Chair, no.
Thank you. Item 4 is questions. To answer questions from members of the public submitted in writing or by electronic mail no later than 5 p.m. 2 working days before the meeting.
No questions received, Chair.
Thank you, Lee. Item 5 is to consider representations received in relation to an application for a premises licence, pages 3 to 48. Procedure at licensing panel, well, that's later on, 49 to 50. So I'll hand over now to Gail. Deborah, please.
Thank you, Chair. So as you've said, this is an application for a premises licence that we're considering today because there have been relevant representations. My recommendation at the start of this item is that you should consider all the information contained in the report and make a decision from the options available in paragraph 7. You should take into account information received from the applicant and other persons and any other relevant legislation or guidance. So just a little bit of background. The Licensing Act allows for interested parties and responsible authorities to make representations for or against an application. Representations must outline relevant information on how the application will promote or undermine the licensing objectives. Now, the representations we've received are against the granting of the license. So the people making representations have said that their licensing objectives would be undermined if we were to grant the premises license. We go to the content of the application. The applicants are Beth Folder and Ray Folder, and Beth Folder is on the call today. The application relates to a premises known as Ponderosa, Broughton Lodge, Little Broughton. There is a plan of the area, which is on page 32 of the report, the agenda, sorry. Paragraph 4.3, the applicant has given a general description of the premises, which is basically it's a rural location. It's a field that's going to be used for weddings, but the applicant will be able to expand on that when it comes to their opportunity to address everyone. The application is to allow live music, recorded music, and the sale of alcohol. Live and recorded music Monday to Sunday, 11 a.m. till 11 p.m. Sale of alcohol Monday to Sunday, 10 a.m. till 11:30. And the applicants have given various measures which they say will promote the objectives. Those are available at Appendix B. There's been a noise assessment done by the applicants. That noise assessment is between pages 9 and 26. There's also a wedding diversification report, which is pages 27 to 32. And there are also conditions which form part of the application form. So measures that the applicant thinks will promote the objectives if the license is granted. Those are pages 35 and 36. The consultation was done in line with the regulations, and Cumbria Constabulary and Environmental Health responded to the application and suggested measures which they felt would promote the licensing objectives. The applicant accepted those conditions, so if you were minded to grant that application today, those should be included. You can find details of those agreed conditions. Environmental Health is on page 37. They very much support what's said in the noise assessment and would want to see those measures included. And Cumbria Constabulary is on page 39, and they've offered general conditions to promote the objectives. Well, I mean, I'm sure Beth Folder will refer to the noise assessment during her submission, but on page 23 of the agenda is the conclusion of the noise assessment, which is the measures that company have felt would be necessary, and those are the ones that are recorded in the environmental health objection. As well as responsible authorities, any other person can make a representation for or against an application. And as I've stated, we've received representations against the application. There are 3. They are from Broughton Parish Council, which are pages 41 and 42. They are from a gentleman, Stephen Murray. His representation is on page 43. And then a representation from Councillor Nikki Corbin. Her representation is on pages 45 to 48. I just wanted to highlight parts of the guidance. The guidance that's issued under section 182 of the Licensing Act says that a person may request that a representative make their representation to the licensing authority on their behalf. It can be a legal representative, a friend, a member of parliament, a local ward or parish councillor. And today, Councillor Nikki Corbin has made representation on behalf of residents of her ward, and that's what she is addressing you as, a ward councillor. Councillor Corbin is aware of the identity of the persons who have made representations, but those details have not been passed to the licensing authority as part of the representation. They were made anonymous. But Nikki Corbin Councillor Corbin can expand on those when it gets to her submission. Also, in our current licensing policy, it states that representations can be made by persons who are elected, such as borough, county, town or parish councillors, or again, a member of parliament. And it confirms that representatives are free to make representations with no specific evidence of being asked to represent another person. And that is why we have Broughton Parish Council making comments today. I just wanted to clarify how people are making representations today. Unfortunately, Stephen Murray was not able to attend, but he's happy for his information to be taken into consideration. Paragraph 5 outlines all the legislation and relevant parts of the policy. Paragraph 6, implications and impact. So there's financial implications. We have received a fee for this application. And then legal and governance implications, there is a right of appeal to the Magistrates Court for any party to this hearing. Paragraph 7 are options available to the licensing panel. So the panel must consider representations and take such steps as it considers necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives. And the steps that are available to you are to grant the license, subject to the conditions mentioned in the operating schedule and other conditions which have been agreed with the applicant responsible authorities, and also the mandatory conditions. You can exclude from the scope of the license any of the licensable activities to which the application relates. So you could grant some of the application but exclude other activities. You can refuse to specify a person in the license as a premises supervisor. Or you can reject the application. Whichever decision that you make today, you must give full reasons for your decision. That's my report, Chair. If there's any questions, I can take those now.
Thank you, Deborah. Go to the members. Is there any questions for Deborah?
Members, just shout out your request to speak. We don't need to use the raised hand on this small meeting. Thank you.
No questions, Lee?
It doesn't appear so, Chair.
Right then. So we'll go to the applicant, Mrs. Folder, please.
Hello. Is this referring to question 2 on my part? Sorry.
Actually, it's just if you've got any questions of me right now, and then
Sorry. No, I don't have any further questions. Sorry.
no, and then if any of the other parties have any questions of me. No, take that as a no. Right. So, Ms. Fold, now it's your
Yes.
your opportunity to make your submission.
Thank you. Okay, so the purpose and the background of the application is for a wedding venue, mainly for receptions. A wedding venue which is going to be completely a blank canvas in a field for the couple to choose what and how they would like to set their wedding out. They could have a marquee or a teepee. The choice is completely up to themselves. All ideas before booking will have to be ran past the events coordinator, which will be myself running the events on the day. Before anything is booked, this is to make sure that nothing is irresponsible will be going ahead. Given it being a blank canvas, there is and will be limits. We want to introduce new ways of weddings. Lots of people who enjoy the outdoors aren't able to enjoy the outdoors as much as a routine wedding, for example, as a hotel. Being outdoors means that the couple can plan their day as much to how they wish. There is no time limits on anything, such as the day. There won't have to be a schedule if they didn't want to. We want the couple and their guests to enjoy the views as much as we do. The couple can enjoy a half-an-hour break away from their guests to take in the day on their own, such as a lovely dog walk. There is the freedom amongst the application, giving them the green area and the bridal way. This is what we want for them. We are a family-run business, which my dad has his own groundwork business since 2002, which we will be able to maintain the works taken out during the wedding event, hopefully once the application has been accepted. Myself is also a self-employed professional photographer for 9 years now. I would also like to push for me to work as a photographer at these events, but welcoming all new suppliers to do so as well. We also run the agricultural business with livestock, which our livestock is currently on the application's land, which we have had for 3 years on rented tenancy, just under 200 acres. The land has been neglected for over 20 years, given that it was a coal board land. And we are here trying to support the funding to make it back into an agricultural farm. We have had for the last 3 years tried our very best to make the green area and the nature reserve and our own rented land better for walkers, wildlife and our livestock. Given the neglected area many years ago, since it was coal board land, the land has been very much neglected, as many walkers will notice. It will take time for people to adjust to what we are doing, which is fully understandable, but all we are wanting to do is farm the land like it was once farmed. However, there is going to be terms with this. To maintain the paths, maintain the land, we also need to work on it, but we also need the extra funding to support this, hence our application for this diversification. We need the funding to go against the land to improve the fields, ditches, drenches, paths, and not only that, but we need to maintain it for especially the wildlife. Since we have had the land rented, we have stopped poachers and people killing unfortunate animals, people walking over the land which is now private, and we have brought back the wildlife we've never seen before in the last 2 years. We will want to be present more on the land, hence our application. We want to show people that we are capable of running such farm with livestock and also showing our faces more to try and stop these people from criminal damage in the area. We hopefully realise that now that we are now farming this and where the public events being held on this occasion should be stopped. We have also, since having the land, we have worked for us to be able to grow a barley crop, which has invited us with lots of wildlife, shelter, hiding, and also feed for the animals. We want to bring tranquility to the area, peace and enjoyment for the views which are available to anybody. The views are stunning and are currently going to waste apart from the small amount of walkers who visit up there on a daily basis. It isn't recognised enough for the surroundings that we do have. The couple have the options to have the photos taken in the hired area of our field and land, but they can also enjoy the photos around the pond and on the bridal way during the summer months. The views of all the wildlife in the background of the wedding photos will be phenomenal. We really wish and hope to make the land recognisable for the amazing views it does have the potential that it could bring to the public. We have worked with the environmental services and the police and have come to agreements, and we had a noise management assessment done, which we did come to the agreement that we will be able to put a limiter in there so it would stop any above noise that people didn't wish for it to go ahead. We want to be able to work with the local community and improve the green area, given the help and support that we need from them to support this application. We will notify the walkers, runners and anybody who uses the bridal way 3 days prior to the event taking place. We will put a notice on the gate, shall it not be removed by public at the entrance of Soddy Gap, with the notification that we are expecting guests to arrive in between such times, giving those who do use the bridal way the option to avoid this half-an-hour time period or not. It will be entirely up to themselves. We shall not be closing Soddy Gap at all. We don't want to stop the bridal way. On the day of the event, there will be signs notifying that the event is being held to let those know who haven't seen the previous notices what shall be happening with the wedding signs. We aim to also be part of the social media groups on Facebook to be able to communicate and let them know via social media 3 days prior to the event and on the day. The application is for one field which the tents will be placed on the event and the event taking place during the day of the evening. The field is a secure site welcoming dogs, pets and children, which is just behind a forest where it is quite private, so that the bridal way will have no obstruction for anybody. There is a secure car park going to be made for the events, which we have been given permission from the landowner to do so, and this makes the bridal way safe and will cause no obstruction to walkers, runners or anybody who uses the bridal way. Mentioning vehicles, we will be policing the events on the time of the arrival, and there will be signposts every so often saying 5 miles per hour up to the car park. We will be stood policing the entrance, inviting and welcoming, and also monitoring speed limits. We did submit a traffic management within the application. The guests shall not be moving their vehicles at all once they have safely parked their cars and will not be allowed to just roam around the bridal way. This is certain. Unless, of course, it is an emergency and they need to leave site. We will be introducing a small passing places for walkers, runners, horses on the bridal way, if for any reason they do meet the traffic during the 30-minute period of the guests arriving. We have had a lot of interest for the field site and lots of ideas. We have a couple of potential bookings waiting to hear from us if we get the go-ahead. We want to support our local businesses within the wedding industry. Given the circumstances of this year, I think we all need the support given to help us, small businesses, for any work possible right now. Local suppliers will be given the chance to be handed over the details to the booked couple. We know we will and can trust these suppliers who will also very much respect the area. We are aware that there is no public transport within the site's location nearby. However, we hope that the local taxi firms will be interested in our business. We hope to help accommodate the guests to their nearest home or hotels where they will be staying at. We are aware that Broughton Crags do weddings, but on a different scale. We are a completely different venue. Other locales, I hope that Broughton Crags and other local hotels, would very much be interested in the accommodation that we will be bringing to their businesses. We think that we help the businesses financially, especially after the year we've had on such loss of income, and we are here to support the local hospitality industry. With this business isn't just for us, it is for all of us. Access to the venue will be not used via Broughton, Little Broughton or Broughton Moor. Directions will be given and must be stated on all invites from the bride and groom that they will need to use the A66 and the A594 to access the site only. This will not disturb or put any pressure on the traffic flow throughout the villages. I should hope that this clarifies our purposes and ideas and any underlying confusion about the applications submitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Folder. Go to any questions? Councillor Daniels.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation, Beth. Very interesting. As I say, I have a couple of questions. The marquees are not the very, very best way of preventing noise spreading. I know from living in Keswick, we have the Keswick Convention where they have a marquee, and it can be heard pretty much all around town. I note that you've got silencers or whatever. Your sound assessment people, I've looked at what they've said. So do you really think that what you put in place is going to prevent noise pollution for local people?
The noise limiter does prevent the above decimal that they have suggested. It does provide us to that limit only. So within reason, we can go to that limit. And once that limit has exceeded above that, it will once then cut out and start again, as in it would have to be below that. The sound, such as if we did get a band, for example, we would have to do a testing service first, so it didn't go off during the live event. But as far as I'm concerned, as long as it goes up to the decimal that they've told us to with the limiter, we're all within reason.
Okay, that's great. A couple more. How you don't have water on the premise on the field, and you don't have anything for human waste. How is that going to be handled?
Okay, so the water will be brought in by the hired companies, such as who's providing the tents and marquees. They do bring and supply all the human water that they're able to drink. A lot of firms do this now because there's a lot of places like myself that don't have access to water. Such as, what was the other question? Sorry, the human waste.
Yeah, I mean, are you having porta potty or something like that? Yes. Is that what the plan is?
Yes, so we can actually hire wedding portaloos now, and they're within reason of price as well. So we will be hiring them in. But again, that's down to the bride and groom. As long as we can tick the boxes off to say that is how they're going to be doing it, and we're happy with that regulation, then all is fine. Yeah.
So now I'm going to move on to a couple of environmental things. Single-use plastic. What is your environmental policy going to be? I'm presuming that this water is not going to be coming in plastic bottles for people to drink, because we are at the moment, as you know, our council has declared a climate change emergency, and we are quite interested in the environmental impact of single-use plastic, etc. Have you thought about that in any way? How you would handle that?
The only reason that I can think of is obviously they'll be hiring the bars in. However, we can adapt to the community and help that situation by suggesting that we could have, I'm not sure what you call it, but you could have like a tank full of clean water, fresh water available for drinking, and such as they could have cardboard cups instead of a bottle.
Yeah, I would like
available
that
for everybody.
And my final question at the moment is, given that these people at a wedding may or may not have a drink or two, I'm a bit concerned about them going on to the A66 at 11:30 at night and driving to wherever the nearest hotel is. I don't know where it is actually. Probably the Premier Inn, is it?
Yeah, there is, such as the Broughton Crags, which is obviously local. And then we've also got like a couple of Premier Inns. There's one at Workington, one at Cockermouth. A few dotted hotels about, but however, those that have had a drink, that's really not relevant to me, unfortunately. However, we will do and prevent to stop this from happening for people not going to be driving whilst they've had a drink. There is taxi firms, that will be available to everybody. Everybody will be given a little business card to say there's a taxi that could be given.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much. If I think of anything, I'll come back to you. Thank you very much, Beth.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. Councillor Smith.
Yes, Chair. Afternoon, Beth. Reading the application, these aren't fixed. This marquee wouldn't be a fixed construction, would it? It would be taken down after each event, and then erected again when another one came along.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
That's okay. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I've just got a couple of questions for Mrs. Folder. What car parking?
Yeah.
What have you got in mind, and how many spaces have you got in mind for the car park first?
So the car park is going to be, there is actually a plan that was given within the application where it does state where the car park will be staying.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
So that car park will be there. It's going to be hard standing, so
Yeah.
they can't get stuck. The vehicles can't get stuck. And also the car parking spaces, to be honest with you, I'm going to be honest, I haven't got a number for car parking spaces. However, there is going to be guests up to about 150 people. However, we have said that people need to use public transport, such as a hired stagecoach, for example, which will limit the traffic on the Bridal Way as well. However, the elderly would probably normally travel. So I'd recommend maybe up to about 25 to 50. Would that be about suitable?
Well, with 25 to 50. And what about the safety aspect of it, lighting and things like that?
So there'll be generators on site. So obviously we can get now silence generators, and the generators will apply for the lighting. So we'll have you can take up and down the lighting situation. I can't remember the floodlights. That's what they're called.
Yeah.
We will put floodlights up for the car park so people can see where they're going. Used by a silence generator.
Right. And is it going to be easy access for you saying about coaches not taking people to the venue?
Yes, there will be plenty of access for the coaches to be taken to the venue and dropped off, and they will be able to turn around as well.
And you did state in your speech there about once the cars go into the car park, they're not entitled to go back out unless emergency, of course.
Yeah.
How are you going to manage that? Are you going to have a supervisor?
Yes, there will be a supervisor on site. There's part of my family. There's my father. My father will probably be doing that side of it whilst we do everything else. But yes, without reason, they can't really leave site unless it's an emergency. This is just to help prevent that the Bridal Way isn't going to be used constantly from A to B.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you. So now we'll go to the speakers. So
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Lee.
You're okay. I was going to introduce the speaker if you like.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so first speaker we've got is Councillor Nikki Corbin.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time. As well as being a ward councillor, my background is safety. I've got a Bachelor of Science in Safety and Health, and up until recently was a chartered safety practitioner. Today I'm representing a number of people who've emailed, phoned or messaged me, and I'm also expanding on my own comments after being given the link to the report about this licence application. Firstly, noise issues. The noise report is almost laughable in what it's left out. Stockmore Hall is around 400 metres from the car park and 500 metres from the marquee, depending on where it's placed. Vehicles and taxis travelling to Seaton, Workington, Maryport, etc. will take the shortcut to Broughton Moor on the Bridal Way right past Stockmore Hall. The background noise is currently almost silent at night, and to have live music playing, and to have live bands playing is unfair, to say the least. It's no good referring back to the noise report because the background noise levels were taken when hay timing and baling was taking place. You can check this on your report. On my report, it's page 15, para 317. And also on my report, which is page 22, but I think it might be yours 23, it concludes that the noise nuisance from vehicles will be negligible. This is simply not the case. Vehicles travelling west will pass within a few metres of Stockmore Hall to go via Broughton Moor, as I said, and those travelling east towards Little Broughton will pass close to Glen and Rose cottages, and that's without the excess parking, which the noise consultant and Beth herself estimated would be 50 up to 50 vehicles, and the noise consultant reckoned 60. This is far in excess of the 38 provided for, and there's no mention in the map either of a turning circle. And this figure of up to 50, I would dispute, is too low for a wedding venue, even with buses used. The use of buses and commercial vehicles with their loud reversing warnings has also been missed in the report. In my opinion, the noise report is at best worthless and at worst aimed to deceive, with at times unusually high background noise from hay timing and baling and missing out Stockmore Hall as a receptor. It's also worth noting that as well as noise from the live bands, there's absolutely no mention or conditions from the environmental health or in the noise report of the diesel generators mentioned or their placement, which will be required to supply, as Beth stated, lighting, music, catering, and that in itself will be intrusive, annoying and significant, as no doubt a substantial generator will be required. Noise travels in odd ways. It also reflects water and structures with minimal loss. So Glen and Rose Cottage will get reflected noise off the pond water as well as the expected noise. And as I said in my email, when we lived in Lanty Close, Brigham, directly across the valley, we were kept awake by vehicles reversing alarms on this site when it was an open cast many years ago, before being turned into the wildlife haven it is now. It looks like if this license is granted, reversing alarms will still keep people awake. Moving on to public safety, this area is a registered community asset. And the reason why is, and I quote, it's used for quiet enjoyment by walkers, riders, cyclists, joggers, photographers and children, as well as being a rich environment for the watching and photographing of rare birds, butterflies, bats, newts, etc. The footpath and bridleway network have been successfully registered as public rights of way, and it should be noted that over 80 people filled out and signed and returned affidavits stating that they use the site and paths regularly over a number of years for the public right-of-way hearing in 2017. On your map on page 33 in my report, it might be 32 in yours, the key states that the red line is a private site access road which adjoins the main adopted highway between Broughton Main Street and the A594. That is, in my opinion, deliberate misinformation. This is not a private site access road. It is public right-of-way number 218028, a registered bridleway. This is a very important network link between the villages of Great and Little Broughton and Broughton Moor, where you don't have to go on the road at all to walk between the villages. The applicant states that the buses will also be used for transportation. This is a public right-of-way. It's not designed for buses. To have vehicles on public rights-of-way is a public safety issue, not to be taken lightly. There will also be commercial vehicles or lorries for bar supplies, musicians' performance equipment, marquees or teepees, toilets and the generators using this road. It's not a private site access. It's a public right-of-way and a valued community asset. These things appear to have been forgotten in the report that you've got in front of you. The additional point is that people will park on the bridleway, and looking at page 33 in my report, there's to be a minimum of 38 parking spaces provided in a car park. Notwithstanding the possible requirement for planning permission, the application is for events of up to 250 people. 38 spaces are not enough, and there's nowhere else to park except probably illegally on the bridleway and public footpaths. Parking on the paths is inevitable. It's nicknamed Soddy Gap for a reason. And may I reiterate, it's my understanding that if someone uses a public footpath or bridleway for vehicular access, and it's access only, that it will be a criminal offence unless they have lawful authority, and that can only take place as long as the usage will not cause public nuisance to other public right-of-way users, i.e. walkers, cyclists and people on horseback. Buses and vehicles transporting alcohol, catering equipment, toilets, people, etc. on the bridleway. Really? This is a safe, established and well-used off-road route between the villages. The application is for live music, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. and alcohol 10 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. March to October. We've been assured that the expected number of event days is minimal at 10 and at the weekend, and the vehicular access for commercial vehicles will be required a day previous for setting up, then there's the event day, and the following day to remove the marquee or teepee, bar music, catering equipment, toilets, and probably a water bowser. It should be noted that the number of event days in the report documents vary from 10 to 15 events a year, and that means with setup and removal days, 30 to 45 days of commercial and ordinary vehicles and buses will be on the public bridleway between March and October. This is going to be a great nuisance and shock in itself to the current legitimate users, that is, walkers, children, joggers, disabled, bird watchers, horse riders, etc., who currently use it. In my opinion, both submitted reports are deceptive in that one failed to include Stockmore Hall, transporter reversing alarms and generator noise, and the other mislabeled the public right-of-way and community asset a private access road, and also mislabeled the community asset as a wildlife community asset and wildlife area as an open cast mine. To grant this license is to grant what would be a major public safety issue with vehicles versus adults and children on a public right-of-way. I have emailed clarification that this is actually Allerdale's responsibility, not the police's, from the police. And breaking the law is unavailable in the parking arrangement. And there will also be a massive loss of amenity to the community, which is highly valued and a registered community asset as a wildlife haven and currently a safe place of peace and tranquility. And I do have to dispute some of what Beth said, that the land is pretty awful. It has been farmed before she took over previously, and a tremendous amount of money was spent reclaiming the land from it being an open cast to turn it into the wildlife haven, because it will be about 10 to 15, for the last 10 to 15 years I've been up there taking photographs, and I'm sure, and I know Beth herself takes photos. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Corbin. Is any of the members wants to ask any questions to Councillor Corbin? Lee, I can't see.
No, it doesn't appear to be. Any of the officers like to ask any questions of Councillor Corbin?
Oh, not currently.
No.
No.
Just Councillor Smith's still got his hand up, Lee, on my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't believe Councillor Smith wishes to ask a question. If you can just confirm that, Councillor Smith. You're on mute.
Sorry to all then, sorry.
No problem.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
Would you like me to move to the next speaker, Chair? And we can,
Yes, please.
as I said, there will be further opportunity if any questions are needed later on. So the next speaker representing Broughton Parish is Mary Bradley. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak to the panel today. I am the Chair of Broughton Parish Council, and this topic was brought to our attention by villagers and was discussed at length at our last two meetings. And councillors individually have received representation from residents. We wish to add to our original submission as more information has been provided. I'm unsure if the three councillors have been to the site, as it's a 3/4 of a mile rather muddy walk at the moment. So I will actually give you that so a little bit more detail as I go through. I walk the route more or less on a daily basis, so I'm very familiar with the site. The parish council accepts that farmers wish to diversify and also always tries to support local businesses, particularly at this time. And we would normally be very positive, but we believe this is a wholly unsuitable proposition. And I will now describe why, having brought together in the following piece all the comments we have received and the subsequent discussions at our parish council meetings. I've also taken the trouble to research other venues such as this to get a better understanding of what Beth proposes. The application is actually for a field which has a mixture of rough grass, reeds and pasture, and importantly has no link to any buildings. There is currently no access to this field except maybe by a tractor over a quite deep, muddy access point. The access to the potential field entrance is by a bridle path, signed and registered as such. This bridle path is accessible from the Little Broughton end and also from the Broughton Moor end, and via a bridle path link to Great Broughton. The field is roughly halfway along, and as the signage says the total length is 1 3/4 miles, I presume the distance to the field is roughly 3/4 of a mile. It does not have easy access as stated in the application. As the panel will be aware, a bridleway, of course, has legal restrictions enshrined in statute going back many centuries. In fact, the name gives it away, bridleway. These restrictions have been recently reviewed. The National Advisory website states it is illegal to drive on a bridleway with motorised vehicles, except for access for farm or woodland management or something like that. The gift to change this does not apparently lie with the landowner granting permission, but with a variance of use application. And to date, I have not seen any evidence of this. And as this is a formally registered community asset, and on the gate posts where the signs are, it states there is Forestry Commission planting. There may be other restrictions that would need to be clarified, and I've not had time to be confirmed. The state of the bridle path is of concern, as it is full of deep potholes and would not be suitable for private cars, even if permissible. It has also deteriorated recently because there's been some woodland management requiring heavier vehicles. This damage has yet to be repaired. When I explored who was responsible for repairing bridle paths, I was surprised to find that it's a joint responsibility between the landowner and the authority, in this case, Cumbria County Council. I presume that Cumbria County Council are aware of this application and have commented on how they propose to support the maintenance of the bridle path, particularly if it has heavy vehicle use, as it will be costly and require continual upkeep. As this is just an application for a field, obviously any wedding will require a number of lorries to make the event attractive and feasible. As someone who organises events of this kind, my assumption is that there will need to be a number of vehicles coming along the bridle path to set up the site prior to each weekend. I did presume that nothing would be left in situ, and Beth has confirmed this. So for each event, there will need to be a number of lorries to bring generators, as there's no electricity, water tanks, as there's no mains water, the marquees, tables, chairs, temporary field toilets as there's no sewer, catering equipment and maybe including bottled gas, And on the day, the vans to bring food, flowers, and of course the band that will play in the evening or whatever music is provided. Then the license is for, it seems to go from 120 to 250 guests. And we can assume that the staff ratio will be about 1 for every 10 people. This means that the minimum we would expect would be around 40 cars. And as Beth said herself, it could be 60 plus staff cars. Some guests may choose to come by minibus, but a coach would struggle because the width of an unusable bridle path in many places. The other issue is that if a taxi was used, the taxi would deliver people and then would have to come back across the same route. As it is illegal to park on a bridle way with or without the owner's permission, there is also a proposal to build a car park. This will be a significant build as the ground is very wet. It is not called Soddy Gap for no reason. 34 cars, as the car park says, will not be sufficient for the number of guests and staff. How in order to do this build, construction vehicles will need to drive along the bridle path. Having taken advice, it is my understanding that planning permission will be required before this can be built, and there does not seem to have been a planning application made. Should not the planning be considered prior to the license application? There is also the change of use, as this will be changing agricultural land into a commercial site. The bridle path in either direction is in poor condition, as I've said, with deep potholes. It is single track all the way along. And for the vast majority of the bridleway, 2 cars could not even pass by going on the grass verge, as there is a deep ditch one side and scrubland on the other. Plus, if they tried it as is wet, they would likely get stuck or to do considerable damage to the vegetation. Beth has indicated they will build passing places, but this is actually would need permission because of the bridle path nature. Also, although the cars may come in within a time slot, as taxis bring people, they will actually have to come back the same way. So they will meet people coming and going. An event like this, you cannot dictate when people will leave. You cannot expect people all to leave at the same time. So they will come away from the site in dribs and drabs. On Sunday, I walked the entire track and on 2 occasions met small 4x4 and 5 vehicles. And both times I needed to get off the bridleway in order to let them pass. This proved more challenging for the gentleman that was on a mobility scooter. And if they had been larger vehicles, passing would not have been possible. The application states that locals are worried they will not have access when weddings are on. Obviously, no one can prevent people walking or riding along a bridle path, so this is not the issue. It is about why people value the area so much. In the past 20 years I've lived here, I have walked up here many, many times and seen the wildlife increase, not particularly over the last 2 years, but continually since this has been an area of particular beauty. I've walked the site almost daily for the last 3 weeks, when whatever the weather and varying times of the day, because actually I currently have a clinical condition. I have never met less than 7 people walking up there at any one time, and usually more than a dozen. People of all ages and abilities use this bridle path from both ends. There are good circular walks from Great Broughton, Little Broughton and Broughton Moor, which make it ideal for dog walking. It is also the off-road access between the villages and is well used as such. It is very safe as no traffic is allowed on the bridle path, so many families use it for walking children, bike riding, exploring the natural environment. This, in non-clinical times, includes both primary schools. I'm always surprised currently how many young people there are running around on what I presume is their lunch hour as a break from home working in these COVID restricted times. During the day, it is a good route for people with prams to walk. I've already spoken of the mobility scooter, but I have met people with sight, learning difficulties, and people like myself who are on crutches. The kind of traffic envisaged with this development would be a nightmare. It is not only the safety aspect, but it's the peace and quiet and the opportunity to experience so much wildlife. And of course, birds who migrate and live on the ponds. Every day, the experience is different. And almost daily, people share what they have seen on the walks and runs via the village Facebook page. And I would challenge that people do not appreciate the beauty of this, as one quite often meets people who are away with backpacks on their backs who are doing this as part of a circular walk. The pond, which is now established, is a favourite haunt of bird watchers, and there is significant variety with the seasons. The proposal to build a jetty into the pond for wedding photograph is an intrusion into a bird sanctuary, but a worrying health and safety risk for children, whether at the wedding or walking around the ponds. In order to get to the proposed jetty, a path will need to be built down the field, as it is wet, to the ponds, so yet more construction and construction vehicles. Given the biodiversity of the site, noise pollution is of major concern. And I think the residents were very surprised that soundings had not been taken from Stockmore Hall, had not been taken from the new homes being built by the access at Broughton Moor, and had not been taken for the new South Build site, which is currently in direct eye line. We struggled with the police report, as the Little Broughton site actually comes in and out onto a corner. Residents had expressed concern about the no overnight accommodation, as people will need to drive home regardless of alcohol consumption. We wondered if the emergency service had been consulted with a risk assessment plan, particularly as it would be difficult for an ambulance or fire engine to access the site. There is also the issue of waste disposal. As I said in the opening statement, we as Parish Council understand the need to diversify and support small businesses, but this is the wrong site for this proposal, and we doubt whether it could ever have a sustainable business plan given the costs of setup each time and construction costs for a car park. As this is a field, there will need to be some construction to enable it to be attractive to hold weddings. I would suggest, as a minimum, there will need to be dry bases for marquees, surrounding areas, cooking areas, toilets, etc., as well as the car park. Because the topography, this is not just a bit of hardcore, but will require significant construction. Planning for this should be applied for, along with a change of use for any licence application to be approved. So finally, our major concern is accessibility along a bridle path, and both the legal, repair and maintenance of this needs to be part of a substantial application. We think that there should be a planning application made for holding this event, a change of use, for actually providing surfaces, hardcore services. We do hope that the planners will then consider all the proposed development that is going on in this area and how this proposal fits into that master plan. The Parish Council and those who have spoken to councils request that this licence is not granted, or at least until all the planning and bridleway issues have been resolved. Once these have done, then maybe the licence could be reconsidered. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Bradley. Is there any members that got any questions to Mrs. Bradley? Lee?
Yeah, it doesn't appear so at this moment.
No.
No. No. It
Can
doesn't appear
I
so.
mention something about the planning application, Chair?
Of course you can, Deborah.
I'm not aware that planning permission is or isn't required. It was just to really clarify that the application, we are entitled to determine it today, even if there isn't planning permission. planning and licensing are two separate regimes. So if you were minded to grant the application today, you would only be granting the application for in licensing terms. It would have no impact on any future applications for planning. We consider very different things. So they are two separate processes. But if you were minded to grant the application today, it doesn't mean that Beth wouldn't have to go and get that planning permission first before she was able to use the site. You have to apply, each rule. You can't just have one without the other, but one does have to come first. So the licensing application has come before the planning application.
Thank you, Deborah. Right.
I think Councillor Daniels might have a question, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Lee. Councillor Daniels.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Just wondering if I can ask clarification from you, Debbie. So you're saying that I realise that licensing and planning are a totally different thing. Could it be a condition that planning permission is asked for for the hardcore, for the car parking, or for the jetty? Is that could that be part of the condition or not?
That would just be an obligation. If planning permission is needed for that site, then Beth would have to get that planning permission before she could start using the site. We're only considering the licensing.
Okay, yeah, okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. I'd like to give Mrs. Ford now a final opportunity to address the panel. Mrs. Folder.
Hiya. Thank you for those who have spoken. I did write down a list of things here that's just been taken into consideration that people have mentioned. Obviously these are just notes, it's nothing written up. I think Nikki mentioned that people will end up going past Stockmore Hall on the Bridal Way towards the Broughton Moor Junction. This won't be allowed. We will not allow that. It's one way in and one way out. So there's going to be no noise management going through the Stockmore Hall situation. She did mention that the tractors, the noise management was taken in summertime, it was harvest time, which obviously, yes, it is harvest time. But tractors run all time of the year. It would never be a convenient time for us to do a noise management, given the circumstances. We are surrounded by farms anyway. This time of year, we're spreading muck on the fields. And obviously, yes, we do understand it is a little bit muddy on the Bridal Way, given the circumstances of the weather. We can't stop that, I'm afraid. The noise management is all correct. We would stand by the noise management limiter. And then the exceeded limit away from Stockmore was acceptable. When I spoke to the noise management guy who came out to do this, he did say it was acceptable for this distance because it met the legal requirements through the health environment, which did contact me, and we did speak before we did the noise management to make sure all the distances from the houses were acceptable before we went ahead of where we put the noise limiters. So the generators, she also mentioned the generators. There will be no diesel generators on site. They are now all silence generators. A very, very small humming, which is nothing compared to the diesel generators which used to be used. Yes, we understand that there's no turning circle for the buses, but they are able to reverse and manoeuvre out of there absolutely fine with no obstruction whatsoever. It doesn't always have to be a turning circle. The wildlife won't be affected, such as the birds, or any other wildlife. If anything, we're actually protecting it by being there and stopping other people from ruining it. As we've noticed recently that there's been air rifles on the pond, there has been poachers who's killing the animals. We're actually trying to stop this by being more present. It is a private access for the fields, which we do rent. We understand that it's a bridle way up to the fields, but then fields are actually a private access and not accessible for public. Hence, where the car park will be at is nowhere near the bridle way. There will be no cars allowed to be parked on the bridle way whatsoever. We understand that it is an illegal factor, which we do get quite annoyed about, of the fact people parking in our gateways, which for some reason nobody's doing anything about recently, that the fact that they're blocking our access to our fields. However, we just have to put up with that because nobody's interested, unfortunately. We will stick to the rules if we can come to an agreement such as the Bridal Way. We are happy to work with the local community, and I hope to think that we can come to some sort of agreement for the Bridal Way rules. If it is down to Allerdale and not the police anymore, then let's sort an agreement out between us all, and let's hope that we can come to an agreement. She did mention that it has been managed previously, the fields and the land. Yeah, it has. However, there's no drains in the field. There's been no money spent on it. Yes, it's been put back to normal grassland, which has just been completely abandoned. There's no drains in the field whatsoever, which make it the name Soddy Gap, as she mentioned. But we're trying to improve the land for the Bridal Way. We understand that we're making a couple of potholes along the way. Unfortunately, that's just going to be what it is at the minute until it gets sorted. This is hence our application for the funding. We're not wanting to completely put it on Allerdale to fetch us all the money in to sort this Bridal Way out. We're wanting to help fund it with our application. Moving on to the other lady that was speaking, was it Bradley? Sorry. Yeah, I can't remember, sorry. It does have easy access. The entrance is private, as I've mentioned when Nikki mentioned it. They won't be using the Broughton Moor end. Again, same situation. The potholes will be managed via ourselves to help the community and the walkers. So any damage done, we're happy to kind of repair that, given the circumstances of the movement of the traffic and the flow of traffic. Somebody mentioned that the taxis will have to come up and down. The taxis will have to remain where they are, and they will have to be notified that it is a one-way only. So once the guests have arrived, they will then be able to leave site. It will be a difficult one to manage. However, we've got the people there to police it, to manage it. The issue does lie within us farming up there. Nobody wants us up there, and all we are trying to do is just try and farm it. When we applied for it, the Bridal Way knew it was a field access, so people need to understand they knew the obstructions before people applied for it to be a Bridal Way. This is what I can't understand with people not wanting us to use the Bridal Way. Before you guys applied for a Bridal Way, you knew that it had field access, which large vehicles are going to need to use it. The jetty has nothing to do with this application, just to confirm that. And yes, if we need to do the application planning permission for the stoned car park, I'm happy to redo that as well. But right now, like Deborah said and mentioned, this is just simply to do with the personal license. It wouldn't concern costs on our end. We're happy. We've funded our costs and we've worked all our costings out. We did apply recently for 2 loads of stone, which was to fill in the potholes actually, but a few things have been mentioned on this web chat today that I'm a bit uncertain about now. We are just trying to help the Bridal Way, in all honesty. We want to diversificate it for purpose reasons. I've got no further to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Folder. Now, I'd just like to ask all the parties to withdraw so that the panel consider its determination.
Chair,
yeah,
we need to give everybody the chance to summarise their comments.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, and also, Chair, if there's any questions as well,
right.
Members just ask the questions afterwards.
Any questions, members?
I think Councillor Daniels.
Councillor Daniels.
Thank you, Chair. Beth, I just want to get straight in my head about this jetty. You say it's not part of the application. I'm not really sure what it's for you to take photographs of the bride before the bridegroom throws her in the lake, is it?
We've all seen it happen once before, haven't we?
So this would
So the jetty isn't part of this application. Obviously, the jetty will probably require a proper planning permission, which is away from the personal license. If that ever does happen, it was just a suggestion and what people thought on it. So at the minute, it's not even in the situation at the moment.
Okay, thanks very much. And also, you talk about maintaining the bridle path, which seems to be, it's going to be used an awful lot if you've got loads of vehicles going up there. So would you guarantee that you will partially maintain it with Allerdale?
It depends what the rules and regulations are on the Allerdale. Obviously, I didn't know some of the information that's been mentioned in here today, you see. So a lot of this is kind of new to me now. However, we were prepared to help the Bridal Way. We were prepared to fill some of the holes in, not just for our own purpose, but for the walkers as well. We understand that the farm inside of it is creating some of the potholes. However, there isn't just us using the Bridal Way. There is other people using that Bridal Way for vehicle usage, which obviously is illegal. But we are willing to prepare to communicate and turn things around as in an agreement of costings. We just want to be there to help it and make the nature reserve better.
Okay, thanks very much, Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. So now can we ask all the parties to withdraw, Lee?
We just need to go to the other speakers if there's nothing further for Miss Folder. So it'll be over to Councillor Corbin to make a summary.
Right. Councillor Corbin.
Oh, this is unexpected. I just want to reiterate, it's a bridal way. You go up there with your kids to walk and you expect it to be safe. You don't expect to come across loads of vehicles. As I said, there's going to be 30 to 45 days of vehicles going on that. And I think it's most unfair that the farmers that have caused the potholes are now saying that they need to diversify to pay to fill in the potholes. It seems a bit ironic to me. And the noise, there will be reversing beacons going on. It makes a hell of a noise. There will be traffic that normally isn't there. And I just think it's most unfair on people that have had the right to walk up there for donkey's years. I think it was 1999 when it stopped being open cast, I'm sure. And Smith probably knows more about it than me. But people have been walking up there for donkey's years. So quite freely and without having to avoid vehicles. That's it, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corbin. Mrs. Bradley.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just like to reiterate that the Bridal Path is the oldest establishment up there, not, it sounds as if it's the fields that were created first, then the Bridal Path, but actually the Bridal Path is very historic. The land was then open cast, and then the Bridal Path was reinstated. So the Bridal Path is an old Bridal Path, and Bridal Path, if you look at their rules, do go back many years and have very protected status to them. We're not talking 1 or 2 potholes here. We are talking lots and lots of potholes. And as for the noise, a few months ago, work started up there with some land management, and you could hear it all over the village, and to such a point that people were intrigued by what was going on and then went and looked. The noise travels significantly from that path. You can hear it easily, regardless of any noise management. It's how noise travels. And this, I'd like to reiterate, this is a very treasured asset that is respected by a lot of people. And while I've been sat here, I've seen 7 people walk past to go round the Bridal Path. Thank you.
Chair,
Thank you,
it's now
Mr.
just,
Bradley.
thank you, Chair. It's just to ask if anyone's got any questions of anyone on the call now.
Anyone got any questions? No?
Deborah, as an officer, is there anything you'd like to comment on or ask questions on?
If everybody's said everything that they want to, then we can proceed to the councillors making their determination.
Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah, sorry, Peter. It seems to me that everyone has had the opportunity to make
The opportunity,
yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's an agreement from all the speakers here. So yeah, over to you.
So just like all the parties to withdraw so that the panel consider its determination. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have an adjournment, and the members will be put into a virtual breakout room to make the decision.
We're going to adjourn for 5 minutes late.
No, what we'll do is we'll put you all in a. We'll have an adjournment now.
Yeah.
And during that adjournment, it'll be the decision making. So if we can, as I say, if I'll put the members into a virtual room. Everyone else on the meeting, if you can just knock your camera off, put yourselves on mute. And what we'll do initially is we'll come back at 15:30.
15:30, yeah.
And I'll provide an update then. Members, if you can just stay on for a moment. Thank you. So once everyone rejoins the meeting, we can hand over back to the chair. Okay, so we're just waiting for the chair to return to the meeting, and then it'll be over to the chair for the decision. And thanks again for everyone for waiting. Okay, so the chair's now rejoined the meeting, and what I'll do is I will hand you over to the chair for the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you for your time this afternoon, and it's been a long deliberation, but the decision has been made to grant the licence subject to additional conditions. Now I'll hand you over to Jill Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. The licensing panel has reached its decision. In making its decision, the panel has had regard to the Licensing Act 2003 and the 4 licensing objectives under that Act: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. The panel has also taken into account the responses from Cumbria Constabulary and Environmental Health following consultation and the representations received from the interested parties. In addition, the panel has had regard to the information provided by the applicant and the information set out in the report by the Licensing and Compliance Officer. The panel has considered the Secretary of State's guidance under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, the Council's licensing policy and human rights. The panel sought to balance the interests of the licence holder and the interested parties. The panel considered the options available to it, which were: A, to grant the licence subject to the conditions mentioned in the operating schedule, modified to such extent as the authority considers necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives and any mandatory condition. B, to exclude from the scope of the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates. C, to refuse to specify a person in the licence as the premises supervisor. And D, to reject the application. The panel felt that it was reasonable and proportionate to take the following steps to promote the licensing objectives: to grant the licence subject to the conditions mentioned in the operating schedule, modified to such extent as the authority considers necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives and any mandatory condition. This effectively means that the panel has agreed to grant the licence subject to the following conditions. 1, the conditions proposed by the applicant as outlined in the report as amended by the conditions included at Appendix C as agreed with Cumbria Constabulary and the Environmental Health Department. 2, the mandatory conditions. And 3, the following additional condition. A dispersal policy must be put in place which requires the presence of a minimum of 3 traffic marshals prior to, during and after any event. The policy should include arrangements for car parking, guiding commercial vehicles and emergency access. In making its decision, the panel considered the fact that the responsible authorities raised no concerns with the amended conditions which have been agreed with the applicant. It also considered the representations made by the interested parties and gave sufficient weight to these concerns. It considers that the conditions as outlined are sufficient to promote the licensing objectives. If any party is aggrieved by this decision, they have the right of appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days of receiving written notification of the decision.
Thank you, Jill.
It's just over to yourself now, Chair, to close the meeting.
I'd just like to thank everybody for their attendance this afternoon. Sorry it's taken so long. And I'd just like